I am now pleased to introduce our distinguished alumni speaker, Caprice Willard. Caprice Willard currently is the Vice President and Regional Planning Manager for Women's Apparel for Macy's Southwest region. Caprice received her BA in English from UCLA in 1994. She was recruited into Macy's executive training program. She worked her way up through various positions, both in the buying offices and retail stores. In 2006, Caprice moved to San Francisco and was promoted to the position of Vice President, Divisional Merchandise Manager of Cosmetics for the Macy's West Division, and held this position for 3 years. In 2009, Caprice relocated to her hometown of Los Angeles to assume her current position. She will be celebrating her 20th year with Macy's in August. Caprice has served as the features buyer for Macy's on NBC's show Fashion Star, a reality show where aspiring fashion designers competed to have their designs sold in major retail stores. Active in her community and recognized as a leader in her field, Caprice was named one of the most powerful women in finance retail by Women of Color magazine in fall 2012. Earlier this year, she helped organize and host a philanthropic event entitled Eras of Black Style, a celebration of Black History Month, honoring and acknowledging how African American culture has influenced the fashion industry. There is no doubt that Caprice has put her UCLA degree to good use. I'm honored and delighted she has joined us today for this momentous occasion. Please join me in welcoming her to the podium.
All righty. Dean Schaberg, Professor Badad, distinguished faculty, who I have to tell you are very hilarious behind the scenes, so I don't know if you guys know that about your professors, but I had a really good time backstage. Proud parents and family members, and most importantly, the graduating class of 2014. I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for inviting me to celebrate this momentous occasion with you, for being here to celebrate all that you've accomplished up till now, but also to encourage you on all the things you will do in the next few years. I'd also like to acknowledge my own family who's actually here with me today, most of them anyway, my mom and dad, so happy Father's Day, Dad. My uncle, the late Dr. Winston C. Doby, who actually is the man who started this whole commitment to UCLA by being the first graduate in our family, and many of us have followed in that tradition. And then last but not least, my husband Sergio, who I actually met over 20 years ago right here at a step show in Poly Pavilion. So it can happen. When I told my family, friends, and colleagues that I was going to be doing the graduation speech for the English department at UCLA, I was surprised, not just at how excited everyone was for me, but I was really surprised at how much advice everyone had for me. Literally, solicited, unsolicited, everyone had an opinion about what I should share with you today. My father, who is, my go-to guy, he said, start with the joke. Whatever you say after that, if you start with the joke, it's going to be all good. My best friend and fellow Bruin said, be sure and tell them they are graduating from the best university in the world. And then she proceeded to burst into an 8 clap, just to drive the whole point home. My coworker said, tell them they're going to have to work hard. And my boss said, tell them they need to dream big, and the only thing that's going to hold them back is their own imaginations. Honestly, even my hairdresser had some advice for you. And he told me to tell you, it's not going to go as you plan. It never does, but it will always work out in the end. So all of this advice, all of this feedback, it got me thinking, why is everyone so invested in this speech? What is it about speaking to graduating students that has really captured the hearts and minds of all my family and friends? And then it hit me. All of us would love the opportunity to go back and tell our younger selves what we've learned over the years, to basically be able to share all of the aha moments we've had, while we've been going about the business of living life and growing up. And essentially all of the advice, the words of wisdom, the feedback that I received boiled down to one thing. We just want to tell you what we wish someone had told us. So, literally 20 years ago, I was sitting right where you're sitting today. I was 21 years old. I was graduating from UCLA with a degree in Bachelor of Arts from English, and I was thinking, now what? Well, now what for me ended up being a 20-year career at Macy's in retail. I was recruited out of college. I worked my way up. I became a buyer. Then I became a vice president of merchandising. And I'm now the vice president regional planning manager for women's apparel for all of the Southwest region. And I'm also the Macy's buyer on NBC's Fashion Star. Now, my story at face value really isn't that remarkable. Okay, I'll say that being on TV, that was kind of cool. But other than that, it's really not that amazing. But what is unique about my story is that I did all of this with an English degree. Not a business degree, not an economics degree, but an English degree. So in May, the LA Times actually reported on a new study that was published by Millennial Branding. And they basically said a mere 2% of companies are actively recruiting liberal arts majors. So you don't need to be a math whiz to deduce that's not a lot of companies. It's statistics like this, though, if you aren't careful, it can really be discouraging. It can cause you to think, the business world isn't for us. They don't want English majors. They don't value our skill sets, what we bring to the table. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you believe that, then you are absolutely wrong. In that same survey, they also shared that 4 out of 5 human resources managers cite communication skills as one of the top traits they look for in someone applying for a job, a skill they happen to find in abundance amongst liberal arts majors. So I'm thinking that's also math that I can do. I can put two and two together, and although an English degree is not highly coveted by employers, we absolutely have the natural abilities and the skill set that every company wants and needs. So, what did all of us get out of being an English major? Other than developing a very intimate relationship with Shakespeare, and also discovering that you too can survive the 10 series, which is a big deal, believe me, I know. There are actually a number of transferable skills that you get from an English major. The first, as mentioned by the LA Times, great communication skills. Be it in written or verbal form, we all absolutely know how to get our point across. Number 2, we can digest and analyze a ridiculous amount of information, right? And not only do we understand it, but we can actually develop a compelling argument around it. We can prove a poem. To many, that is virtually impossible, but not to an English major. And that means we have a great ability to influence others with our words and our thoughts. And then, last but not least, we are critical thinkers by definition. We can connect the dots on almost anything, especially if given enough information. So, communication skills, analytical skills, ability to influence others, critical thinking, all of these traits describe an English major to perfection. But do you know who else they describe? A leader. Leaders rely on all of these skills to motivate their teams. They use these skills like tools in a toolkit to push their teams to do more, discover more, innovate more. It isn't a leader's ability to do that gets their teams going. It's their ability to inspire. As an English major, you are hardwired to be a leader in whatever you decide to do. Whether you decide to be a teacher, a lawyer, a writer, or go into business such as myself, you intuitively have the skills to succeed. You have spent years inspiring your professors, your peers, quite frankly, even inspiring yourself with your creative thoughts and ideas. And now, upon graduation, you get to use those skills, those tools in your toolkit to see what you can do. Now, don't get me wrong, a little bit of effort does need to be applied. So will you need to fine-tune your craft? Absolutely. Will you have to work hard? Absolutely. Will there be days when you just want to quit? Absolutely. I'll give you a little example from my own life. When I decided to go into retail, I had to learn something called retail math. Yeah, that's right, in retail, apparently the regular math isn't good enough, so we have to have our own. After I had spent literally 4 years avoiding every math-related course here at UCLA, I ended up picking a career that required constant calculations and managing to a profit margin. I'll be honest, it wasn't easy. I had to work harder than my peers to learn this thing called retail math. I had to study a little harder, I had to prepare a whole lot more, and more than once I thought, I'm quitting. But I didn't quit. Instead, I learned it, I mastered it. And once I got those basics under my belt, then I leveraged my toolkit to excel and to succeed. So to bring it home, I'll leave you with this. To quote the renowned author Dr. Maya Angelou in I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, you should leave here today hoping for the best, prepared for the worst, and unsurprised by anything in between. So as you hope for the best, remember, you have the tools in your toolkit to be successful and to make a difference. You have the skills and abilities to be a leader in whatever you decide to do. As you prepare for the worst, remember, as my family, friends, and colleagues said, you will have to work hard, and you will have to push yourself to think outside of the box, use your imagination, dream big. And finally, to help you be unsurprised by anything in between, remember, it will not go as planned. It never does, but it always, always works out in the end. Thank you, and congratulations, class of 2014.